welcome to the Counterattack Playthrough Series. We're playing Waterloo, Napoleon's Last Battle. It's by Companion Wargames. It's a new wargame company. We have it all set up. Let's go check it out. Okay, here we are looking at the center of the map. As per usual, I'm not going to give a big rules intro, and we'll just learn the rules as they are needed. That being said, this is a large map that I can't fit onto the camera, so I better give some situational awareness before we get going. Waterloo is a battle between France and the 7th Coalition, and I'm probably just going to call that the Allies. It's easier for me. But it's composed of, in this game, the British and the Prussians. The British start on map, they're in red, the French are in blue. Prussians are off map and are sort of a greenish color. There's some smaller nations kind of mixed into the British army. But yeah, let's take off and check this out a bit. Okay, so we can see the map here. So the British forces are arrayed up there. There's three kinds of units. There's infantry, artillery, and cavalry. And there's some specialized infantry called skirmishers. And then so here we have the French line going out here. And then off to both their flanks, it's kind of empty. These big boxes over here, where the Prussians are going to come in. I don't know a lot about this battle, but I feel like it was a surprise. So I don't know if it's possible for the French to be surprised. But I don't think they come in until turn 6, something like that. We can see there's a bunch of French flags. Those indicate areas. As you can see, the map's made of areas. Are controlled by the French. So it looks like they came up through these roads from Quatre Bras, and yeah, kind of spread out to form their line. So if there's no French flag, it's owned by the Allies. Let's take a look over here. So there's actually a number of turns. There are hours of the day, starting at 11 in the morning and ending at 20 or 8 p.m. And then each turn is composed of a series of impulses. So we'll see how that works. And then here's victory point tracking. There's victory points for capturing certain areas, and there's also victory points for destroying the enemy. And you can see it's sort of a balance. It'll go back and forth like this as each side scores victory points. If one side gets to, if the points get to one end or the other, there's an automatic victory. Otherwise, we total victory points at the end of the last turn. So let's go quickly take a look at some map areas, and then we'll actually get playing. And as already noted, the map is carved up into areas. They are generally have a white border around them. They have a number indicating the like identifying it. So this is area 75. Some areas are bordered by rivers. So for example, these two village areas are separated by a river here. So rivers act as borders. Besides an identifier, the area also says what kind of terrain it is. It uses an icon. So a brown circle is, I think it's called flat. No, clear. It's called clear. I'll probably call it fields. Black square is a village, and green triangle is a forest. There are actually numbers inside these icons. That's the TEM, or terrain effects modifier, so that affects combat. A clear or field with a 1, that's just a regular old flat clear field. If it has a 2, it is elevated, so it's higher ground or a hill or a ridge line. You can kind of see that in the artwork. There's sort of a shadowing to it. So there's a bunch of those on the map. Some places, it looks like they're all villages, have victory points printed on them. So there's 2 victory points, 2 victory points. Green ones are only worth victory points to the British. And then somewhere around here, yeah, here's an example. A blue one is only worth victory points for the French. Okay, we have a little sequence of play over here. It goes commander phase, rally phase, grand battery phase, action phase, and end phase. On the first turn, we start with the grand battery phase. And so, you know, let's go check out the center of the map here, because that's where the grand battery is. Let's start. Okay, well, it's turn 1, 11 a.m. and it's the Grand Battery phase. In the Grand Battery phase, the French get to, for free, activate the Grand Battery for bombardment. A Grand Battery is a special unit that is a collection of many artillery units. You can see them here. Artillery units have a cannon icon on them, and they also have a attack factor, which is in the upper left-hand corner, that is not white. Normally all the numbers are white, but artillery have an attack factor that is not white. The defense factor for these is in the lower left, and then the movement is in the lower right. So all these guys are pretty much the same, except for this one here. They all belong to different formations. There's two from this white formation, that's first corps, one from this sort of rose color, which is sixth corps, and then two from, what is this, second corps, the orange. And that matters normally, but when you're grouped into the Grand Battery, we can ignore that in terms of being able to do a bombardment. So the Grand Battery in this phase gets to do a free bombardment. So artillery bombard adjacent areas. They can bombard into, so the Grand Battery here can bombard into area 47 or 29, for example. There's no one there to bombard though. You can also bombard up to 2 areas away if the intervening area is a field with a 1 in it. In other words, like a flat field. So they theoretically can hit 31, 30, 46, and 61, it looks like. However, there's no units to bombard there. However, the Grand Battery has a special ability. As long as it remains in this area, area 48, it can bombard over this ridgeline. I know it's a ridgeline because you can kind of see the artwork kind of as like a curved sort of shading to it. Also that they are brown circles for fields with a number 2 in them, so that's elevated area, so I'm calling it a ridgeline. They can go over that ridgeline if they're firing from this location. And there's only 3 areas they can actually hit though. They can hit these 3 areas right here. They have a cannon icon in them to indicate they are able to be bombarded by the Grand Battery. But it's indirect fire and thus at half firepower. But we might as well do it, right? There's nothing else to bombard. It's a free bombardment. And, you know, we'll learn more of the rules as we go. But so we're going to bombard. You're supposed to pick a target unit, but other units can be affected. So I think, you know, I don't really know what I'm doing here. I'm just learning as I go. But I see there's like 2 weak artillery units here, and then there's a stronger one here, and then looks like 3 infantry units here. I know they're infantry because they have crossed rifles. I think we'll bombard here, and you know, I don't even know if that's a good idea or not, but let's do it. So when doing a bombardment, and I'm gonna, you know, go slowly when I'm introducing new rules, and then I'll speed it up. When you're doing a bombardment, you pick a point unit. So, you know, all these guys can participate in the bombardment. So I guess I have to decide which ones are going to participate. I'm going to do them all. And the reason I might not want to do them all is they become spent when they bombard. But we're going to go ahead and I'll pick this top guy to be the point unit. Okay, and so what that means is when you look at the bombardment chart, we have to calculate an attack value. And so you take the point unit's full attack value, so that's 3. Then for each additional supporting artillery unit, we add 1. So that's 3, so 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Now since it's the Grand Battery using indirect fire, we're firing over the ridgeline, we have to have it and round down, so it goes down to 3. Okay, and then we have to make some decisions about our target. So as the bombarder, we have to pick a target, I should say a primary target in the area being bombarded. So looks like 3 infantry, one's a little tougher, and 1 artillery. So if we had picked a cavalry unit, which there isn't one present, we can add +1 to our attack value. Well, there isn't one. If we target a artillery unit, and you know we're looking at the bombardment player aid here, it would add +1 to the defender's defense value, which we will calculate right now. But so I think because of that, we're going to pick this stronger infantry unit, which has a 4 attack, as the primary target. So I guess we'll put it on top here. Okay, and so now let's figure out the defense value of the defender. So it's 2 times the terrain effects modifier of the area. So what is that? It's a 2, so it's elevated field. And so the terrain effects modifier times 2 is 4. So the defense value is 4. And then the only other applicable modification is +1 if the artillery is using long range fire, which it is. So we're looking at 5. So attacker, the attack value is 3, the defense value is 5. Now we're going to have each player roll 2 dice. Whenever you roll dice, you always roll 2 dice. Well, I'm going to roll 4 because I'm rolling for both players. The French are blue, of course. We're going to add the attack value to the French and the defense value to the Allies. Okay, so the French had a 3 attack value, so that brings them up to 8. The Allies have a 5 defense value, which brings them up to 10. So the Allies have a greater number than the French. What that means is no effect. So the French need to roll higher after adding their attack value than the target player after they add their defense value, and they didn't, so there's no effect on the defender. And then regardless of their success or failure, all these artillery units become spent. So every unit in general on the back has a spent side. So you can see here, this is a 344 artillery unit. On the spent side, it's a nothing 2-0. So it's much weaker on the defense and can't even attack or move after doing this. So we're going to flip all these. So that's unfortunate. Grand Battery didn't do anything. I'm imagining it will do some more things later, though. Okay, that is the end of the Grand Battery phase. Okay, so we can see the Grand Battery, but more of the field of view now. Let's skim over to this area because we're starting the action phase now. And, you know, I don't know how to play this game. I don't really have, I mean, I've read the rules, but I don't have a feel for like how bloody things are or how much force you have to exert to do something. But I'm looking at this area now. In the action phase, the French go first, and then the Allies. And they probably get to do that a number of times before the turn ends. So the French are going first, and I'm looking at this village of Hougoumont. It's worth 2 victory points to the French. There are 3 units in it. These are special units. They're all skirmishers. We can see 2 of them have some low numbers on them. They're named skirmishers, and then there's a tougher version of skirmishers called rifles. But I'm thinking I want to like try to take that village before the British put more troops in there. I don't know much about this battle, but I did watch like a little thing on YouTube. There's like an animation of the battlefield, and the French like went all out for this thing, it looked like, and also for another village. So yeah, I don't think it worked out for them, but I'm going to try it also. You know, the way the action phase works is you activate the leader of the corps or the formation that you want to do some work. For example, here's a green units from the Green Corps. That's actually the 3rd Cavalry Corps. And their leader is Kellerman. You keep your leader markers off the map. These are little markers that you can like use to activate, and sometimes they'll flip so that they can't activate anything. But so if I wanted to activate some or all of these units here, I would have to roll some dice to see if Kellerman can activate, and then Kellerman can pick an area that has units from his formation in it, and this appears to be the only area that has his units on the map, to do something. Okay, so let's see what you can do. It's written on the map right here. So you can order units to move and or assault. You can do volley fire, bombardment, which we've already seen an example for, a general advance, cavalry charge, or pass. We're going to see examples of all those things. And so let me go a little further, and off map we can see all the French leaders. color-coded to their formation. On top of that, there's Napoleon. He's the commander. And so these leaders have some special abilities, and the commander has some special abilities. So we might want to use this commander special ability here. But since I'm playing both players, I also have the British leaders and the British commander, Wellington. Later, when the Prussians come on the map, they will also have some formation leaders and a commander. So let's figure out what I can do to try to get this village. Well, I think what I'm going to try to do is activate my commander, Napoleon. And you can activate a commander to do a special action. The special actions are, for commanders, double move, intervention, and sunset roll cancellation. So we don't have to worry about those yet, but I want to try to activate them for a double move. So normally when you activate a leader successfully, they can pick one area where they have a formation in order to do something. A commander can issue a double move where they can ignore the formation limitation, like they control lots of formations, and they can pick two areas or two formations within one area. So what I have to do is roll, and I believe I'm looking to roll 8 or more. So let's try this out, see if Napoleon can successfully issue a double move. Okay, I rolled 8, so I better go see if it has to be more or greater than or equal to. Okay, I had to roll equal to or greater, so Napoleon did activate. And maybe for fun, we'll throw him right here. But really, he's supposed to be off map. Okay, so he can activate 2 different formations, either in 2 areas or share in the same area. So I can do, the green and orange formations here, or do 2 formations of orange in separate areas. And I can do them individually, like take an action with these guys and then take an action with these guys over here, or combine them. And so I think what I'm going to do is combine them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to issue a move. So first I would pick formation number 1, which I will pick this one. Now here's some skirmishers. They don't belong to the formation. They don't have the orange color here, but they can go for free. It's cool. So I think we're gonna order these guys to move in here. Now we are trying to enter an area that contains a fresh enemy unit. Fresh meaning it is not spent. That costs 4 movement points. Just so happens we have 4 movement points, so we can do this. But if we didn't have 4 movement points, you can always make a minimum move, meaning you can spend all your movement points to go one area. So we're going to move these guys in. I'm going to kind of spread them out so we can keep an eye on what they are. So they moved into that area. Now normally if you move into a enemy occupied area and there's no friendly units there, you have to make a mandatory assault on the enemy. And that is true, we have to do that, except this is the one time doing this Napoleon or commander double move that you just sort of pause it if you want to move 2 formations into there at once and you go get your other formations. I'm going to move these guys in as well. So it looks like a skirmisher into infantry. So they're all assaulting into there. Okay, I could bring this cannon along with me as part of the same formation. But it would not be able to participate in the battle. When a cannon moves in, it can't do an assault, and it would flip to the side. I think we'll just leave it here and see what's up. I don't know if it's good or not to leave it there, but it's going to stay in this area. Okay, so now the move portion is done, and we have to make a mandatory assault because there's no friendly units in the location and there are enemy units. You have to assault. If there were friendly units there, we could decide on our own if we want to do assault or not. Now before we do the actual assault though, we need to take a look here and see the defender has at least 1 skirmisher unit. In fact, all the units are classified as skirmishers. And so skirmishers, one of their special abilities is that they can attack the attacker before they make an assault. Skirmishers, I'm not too familiar with this period, but I think they're similar to skirmishers all the way back to ancient times. Basically, they're more irregular troops. They're more spread out, and they generally are there to harass, demoralize, and break up enemy formations. That's my take. So that's what's going on here. They're going to try to bust up this assault, or at least make it tougher. So yeah. Okay, so this is skirmisher defensive fire. So the skirmishers are sort of temporarily the attackers, and so we have to calculate their attack factor. And what we do is we pick a point unit, just like we picked a point unit for the Grand Battery bombardment. We have to pick a point unit here, and I can see on the skirmisher defensive fire chart that the attack value is going to be the point unit's attack factor +2 for each supporting skirmisher. So we'll pick this guy as the point unit. That's 2, and then I get 2 more for those skirmishers. So that's a total of 6 attack value, I should say. Now for the defense value, you take the TEM of the area entered from. So these units entered from these areas here, and so the TEM is 2. So the defensive value will be 2. Now I don't actually know what you do if on a double move the TEM that you came from is different in each area. So I've asked that on Board Game Geek. But right now it's easy. Got 2 and 2. So defensive value is 2. And then +1 if the primary target is a skirmisher. So the primary target when we bombarded was selected by the person doing the bombarding. In this case though, the primary target of the skirmisher defensive fire has to be the lead unit of the attack. So I need to pick a lead unit for the attack. And then, so if the lead unit is a skirmisher, which I do have skirmishers, so I could pick a skirmisher, that would be +1 to the defensive value. And then +1 more for each additional skirmisher, and there's one there. So I think I might want to make it a skirmisher. So picking a point unit as picking a skirmisher as a point unit makes it my defense higher. One issue with that though is if there is a casualty, the point unit must take the first casualty, and casualties can be absorbed by becoming spent, and then if you're already spent you can retreat, and those absorb casualties, and we'll see the defenders or the skirmishers here are going to fire and create casualties. But a skirmisher with the word skirmisher on its title can't become spent to absorb a casualty. It just dies. And in an assault, if your lead unit dies or retreats during skirmisher defensive fire, the assault is called off. So basically the skirmishers disrupted the assault. So what that means is I think I should probably pick a different unit, not the skirmisher. So we'll pick this unit led by Soya. Yeah, that'll be the lead unit, or the point unit. Yeah, so sorry, yeah, this is the point unit for the assault, which means the skirmisher defensive fire has to pick it as its primary target. It is not a skirmisher, so the defense value does not go up by 1, but there is 2 skirmishers in the assault, so they will each give me +1. That's a total of 4 defensive value, 6 attack value. Let's go ahead and roll. So 4 defense value, that's 7 plus 4 is 11, 9 plus 6 is 15. So the difference between those, the allies have 15 minus the French 11. The difference is 5. That's 5 casualty points the French must absorb. So that is a really bloody situation, I believe. So the lead unit, or the point unit, has to take the first casualty point. And you can see on the casualty points chart, for each fresh unit that becomes spent, we can absorb 1 casualty point. So we have 5 points, and one of them has to go to this guy right off the bat. So we will go ahead and flip it to spent. Okay, so we have 4 left to absorb. Okay, note that this attack factor dropped from 3 to 2. This is not that bad. Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and spend some other guys. Now, if I spend a skirmisher, skirmishers just die. So I probably want to keep my skirmishers around a bit. So I think we'll go ahead and spend, send all these guys to their spent side. Okay, so that's absorbed 4 of the 5 casualty points so far. Now I either have to kill a skirmisher or retreat one of these spent guys. I don't want to retreat this unit. Well, if I did retreat it, the whole assault would be called off. So if it dies or retreats, the whole assault is called off. So I could, at this point, decide to retreat it for 1 more casualty point. Everyone would go back to where they came from, and the assault would be called off. Otherwise, I can retreat 1 unit or kill a unit, and then continue with the assault. Now, looking at the assault table, it's going to be really bloody. For example, when you're putting attack values together, you get +2 for each supporting infantry if it's fresh, but they're all spent. And skirmishers only count for half a point. So, so my attack capabilities are massively depleted here. So, you know, I don't know how to play the game well, but I don't think it's time for these guys to go in and just get butchered. So I think they are going to retreat. Well, I guess I should say, like, this guy will retreat as the, and since it's the point unit, all units must retreat, and they all become spent. Actually, one question though is, are the skirmishers going to die? No, they won't. No, because the casualty point is absorbed by this guy retreating, and then the assault is called off. And let me make sure an assault being called off actually means they have to retreat. Okay, my reading of the rules is that it just says all assaulting units must retreat if the point unit is eliminated or retreats. So they go back to where they came from. We'll take Napoleon off. Napoleon flips over to his inactive side, so he can no longer do a special action, this impulse. Let me go put him back with the other leaders, because the French have a interesting capability. When Napoleon is spent, Ney takes over as the commander in a way. So he can behave like the commander in certain ways, and that's probably why his face is here instead of just a core name. Okay, so that was my first attempt at an assault, and it didn't pan out so hot. Okay, so now that the French have taken an action during the impulse, it's impulse 0, the Allies get to. So I don't know what to do here, but I think I just learned that skirmishers are amazing in terms of defense. So I'm kind of looking around, and as the British, tend to want to be defensive at first. I know the Prussians are coming, right? So kind of looking back here, like, I guess it'd be good to get like some more guys into Hougoumont since it's so far out. But I'm also looking back here, like, there's not a lot of units back. There's 2 units stacked with skirmishers here. That's cool, but there's no skirmishers here. And also back here, I don't know really how well things are gonna be able to move around, but there's a bunch of cavalry back here. So, could the French like bust through back there? I don't know. So, but I'm kind of thinking I want to maybe reinforce a little bit over here. And so I'm looking at these brown units back here, and maybe these green ones way back there. I'm inclined to move one of those up. So let's go ahead and here, let me give you my thinking here. Like, these guys, they're way back there. They're useless. I'm inclined to move them, but I would have to try to activate the Orange Corps. I think it's called the Orange Corps because they're from the Netherlands. They got a little orange bar along the center. But anyway, I would have to try to activate this guy, and if he activated, cool. He'd flip over and couldn't be activated, this impulse again. And the reason I might not want to do that is because there's more from the Orange Corps up here. More green units, and then there's more over here. So they're all on the front line. I might not want to activate these guys and use up the leader. So maybe we'll do the brown ones. There's also white, but the white all look like cavalry. I'm gonna kind of move these brown guys. So that would be Ulfermann, and that's the Brunswick Corps. So these might also be, you know, German or something. But yeah, so let's try to activate. I have to roll a 7 or more. All right, got a 10. Now, one thing I didn't mention is leaders, as opposed to commanders, also have special actions. And I could have potentially tried to have a leader participate in that last battle, but we'll see this kind of thing later. Okay, so I've activated the leader, and now the leader picks an area where at least one unit from his formation is. So we'll pick area 20. There's lots of units. And then I think we're just going to issue a move action. It's really the only thing that is applicable. And so all of these guys are able to move, so we might as well move them all. So movement rules. To enter an vacant area, it costs 1 movement factor. Entering a vacant area adjacent to an enemy is 2 movement factors. And so on. So it looks like we can go 1, 2. I could even move way up here, I think. Okay, so I'm going to move all these guys. And one thing I want to do is I want to get another unit into Hougoumont, and I'm pretty sure I can do that. I am playing with an optional rule. There's several optional rules, and I'm not going to use all of them, but there's a couple I kind of like, and one of them, it says something like, you know, these villages are small and really should only be allowed to have 4 units in them. Normally you can have 10 units of your side in an area. So it's suggesting 4. I'm going to play with that one. I think it makes sense to me. Okay, so there's only 3 here. So this artillery unit has a movement of 4. So I think you can go 1 into this vacant area. And the rules say vacant, but I think it means vacant of the enemy, because there's nothing about, you know, area with friendlies or whatever. 2. And then 3, 4 into Hougoumont, because it's a vacant area, yet has enemies adjacent, for example here. So this guy moved in here. I guess I'll just stack it on. No, I like keeping the kinds of units separate, okay? So then we have some pretty light infantry. It's a 1 attack, 1 defense, 2 attack, 3 defense, 2 attack, 2 defense. So I think maybe they'll come over to this edge to since Mitchell's all by himself. So I think we'll go 1, 2, 3 and stay here because it's Thames 2. This Thames 1. So, and I think you move them individually, but since if they're all going to the same place, you can move them as a stack. Okay, and then lastly, we have a cavalry unit. Now, unlike all the other cavalry units, this one is missing an icon. Let me go find another cavalry. Here's one. So you see, there's like a little horse head at the bottom. So it's like a misprint. So unfortunately, that one, this one doesn't have it, but it is cavalry, and I know that because it has crossed sabers and a movement factor of 6. So I need to decide if I want to move that cavalry. I might as well. You know what? We'll just move it up with the formation. I think if I break these units up too far apart from each other, it gets harder to activate them, right? Because you only activate a formation at a time. Now, because Ulfermann, the commander of this formation, successfully conducted an action with his formation, he flips to the spent side. Okay, so we just did the French action and then the Allied action for impulse 0. Now the Allies have to roll 2 dice, and this is called the sunset die roll. It's not an actual sunset because it's only 11 a.m. right now, but it's sort of the sunsetting of the impulse, perhaps, or the turn. So we have to roll 2 dice and take a look at them. Now, if they're greater than the current impulse, which obviously they are, the impulse advances. So we're now on impulse 1. I think I said if it's greater, but if it's equal to or greater, the impulse moves forward. And obviously we can't roll a 0 or a 1, so it's always going to move forward in the first few impulses. So if you roll less than the number, the turn ends. So there's this like, unknown when your turn's going to end mechanic to this. If the impulse goes off the end as well, the turn ends. If the sunset roll moves the impulse, a commander can intervene and cancel the sunset, but then they become spent. So anyway, so we're only on impulse 1 of the 11 a.m. turn, so we get to do another French and British action. So I'm going to start speeding things up here. Okay, again, I don't really know what I'm doing, but so I've learned skirmishers are tough, and I guess villages with skirmishers are tough. My left side, is substantially weakened. I think maybe I want to get like more artillery in here. This area is like not that strong, though there's a village here with defense value 3. But it's not that strong. Maybe I want to like get some artillery up here to start doing some bombarding. So I could just bombard with this guy, 1, 2 through a 1 level field. But maybe I see I have some horse artillery back here. I know it's horse artillery because it has a cannon picture and a picture of a horse here. It also has a different colored attack value indicating artillery, as well as a 6 movement factor. So maybe we will try to activate Derland's first corps, which is the white. I need to roll 7 or higher, so I'm more likely to get this. I only rolled a 4 though, so he does not activate. And that doesn't mean I have to flip it over to spent, it just means I have passed. That's so I failed to, the runner didn't get to the troops or whatever. Now as the British player, if I wasn't me, all I would know is that the French player tried to activate the white corps, so I wouldn't know like what the plans were obviously, or what was even going to be moved. I was just trying to activate the leader. So I think as the British, I would want to hop back over to this side of the field, and I'm thinking like they're a little spread out here. I'd like to maybe consolidate the blue troops a bit. I don't want to leave a big gap there though, so I'm just trying to think, can I move like some units into one of these spots and then consolidate the other units? Or maybe I can do something where I move them forward and to eliminate a gap. I don't really see that situation. What do we have here? We got some skirmishers. Ooh. Okay, so this is probably a waste, but I think I'm just going to try to activate Hill's second corps just to bring this guy over here. This is probably dumb. So I need to roll 7 or more. Got a 5, so that's a pass. Okay, now the British makes a sunset die roll. Rolled a 10. 10 is greater than 1, so now we're on impulse number 2. So this goes pretty fast actually. Over on the right, we're going to try to activate Derland's corps again. I'm rolling red dice, but 7, so he's activated. And I think he's going to activate this location here. So there's a horse artillery and then 2 cavalry. So I think I want to move this horse artillery up here. So that's just 1 movement point. And so now I have 2 artillery here that can fire into Papelotte. Papelotte. And then, so, I might as well not waste these guys here, which also happen to be there. So I should decide what I want to do with them. Maybe they want to, like, sweep around a little. I can see, like, in the back, the British have a few, like, singular cavalry units. Maybe alternately, they could like sort of move over here and then later do a charge against Bailant. So their movement's 6. So if they were like positioned here, if they did a movement, they can go 1, 2 into a clear area or a vacant area next to an enemy, and then 4 more moves into a enemy occupied area. So maybe we'll do that. They will be in artillery range of this guy here, but let's just do this. So they're going to go 1, 2, 3. Just sort of position themselves there. Derlan is spent. Okay, British action. By the way, this French unit took command of that, or control of that location. So now the British see 2 cavalry units coming in. I would be guessing, that's the target. So maybe we should try to activate Picton's Reserve Corps to bring it up into that location. Now, one problem with these locations here is they are within range of the Grand Battery, but there's not much we can do about that right now. What I do like though is this one location where Bailant is. It spans the distance of these 2 back here, so I could consolidate more there. So anyway, let's see if we can activate Picton. No, I'm getting a lot of low rolls, so Picton passes. Now we're going to roll for the sunset. Okay, we got 4. The current impulse is 2, so it's still greater than or equal to, so now we're on impulse 3. So something I misread and probably misstated is that after a leader becomes spent, you can still try to activate them. It's just harder. So Derlan now activates on an 8 or greater instead of a 7 or greater. So I think the French are going to try to activate Derlan again. So 8 or more. Got a 3. That's a pass. I guess the British are going to try to activate Picton again. That's an 11, so Picton does activate just in the nick of time to go help defend Bailant. I think we might as well just move everyone up. Only costs 1, but I'll move them up here. Now, yeah, that's going to foil that cavalry charge that was forming up. Let's roll for sunset. Rolled an 8, that is greater than or equal to 3, so now we're on impulse 4. Okay, now that I know a spent leader isn't really spent, it's just tougher to activate, that really changes my thinking of the game. So I'm going to try to get Derlan again. He needs an 8 because he's on his spent side, rolled a 7, so he passes. I think for the British, they're going to try to activate Picton again because there's this cavalry out in the open. Picton activates on an 8 now because he's on his spent side. That's a pass. Roll a 4. Sunset. Rolled a 7. 7 is greater than or equal to the current impulse of 4. So now we're on impulse 5. Let's go ahead and French going to try to activate Derlan again. Got a 9. Derlan activates on an 8 on his spent side. And I think he's going to activate this area. Specifically these 2 cavalry units, so it's going to be for bombardment. Did I say cavalry? Artillery. I think this is kind of dumb. I think this is got a long shot. So I have to pick a point unit. They're basically the same. So this got to be the point unit. That's +2 attack for the attack strength, and then +1 for each additional supporting artillery. So that's a total of 3 attack against. This will be our primary target. Yes, this Weimar infantry unit. Okay, so the TEM of the area is 3. You multiply by 2, so it's 6. Ugh. And then it's long range fire because we're firing through this area into here. So that's another +1. So we're looking at a +7. So 2 versus 7. Okay, the French needed a high die roll and they didn't get it. So this is 13. This is 10, so no effect, and these artillery are spent. The British are going to try to activate Picton, who's on his spent side, so it's 8. Got a 7, passes. Sunset roll. Got a 5. 5 is less than or greater than or equal to, so it's equal to the current impulse of 5. So move to 6, but that almost ended the turn. Okay, I think the French, they're going to try to activate Derland's court again for I need an 8 or more. Got a 7. A lot of passing here. British. Yeah, what do the British want to do? I think they'll try to activate, now that I know units can continuously be activated. I'm going to try to activate Hill's core. It's not on a spent side, so that'll be a 7 or more. Nope, so that's a pass. I rolled a 5. Sunset. That's a 5. 5 is less than 6. The turn ends. And technically, the turn doesn't end. We end the action phase and go into the end phase. We then check to see if someone's won. And then reset. So the impulse goes from 6 back to 0. It's now 12 o'clock. And victory points is still at 0. We haven't harmed anyone. Yeah, okay. So that's the end of turn 1. And I think this is a good point to break. So not a lot's happened, but I can see stuff's going to start moving. So look for part 2.